Hey there, it's Melissa, and I want to talk to you about how to teach your child to be a good reviser. And I use an acronym with my students that teaches them a simple way to improve their writing. Now, to start with, as I begin to teach you the STAR method, I want to first talk about what revision even means. A lot of times, students think that revision and editing are two and the same, and they're not. They're actually separate. So, revise comes from two words. We've got um, the prefix re, which means to do something again, right? Like I'm going to reheat the oven, right? And vise, actually, the viz in there. Is the root word of vision, or vision is part of that root word. It's to look or to see. So when we revise, we're looking at something again. And that's what I teach kiddos all the time. Like, hey, before we even look for our grammar and spelling and make sure that we followed all of those rules, first we want to look at our content. So revise is to reread our work with the intent to improve its content, right? That's the whole point. That's why we're doing it. There's such an easy way to do this. I would love to say that I invented it, but I know I heard it from somebody, and it just is stuck in my brain, and I teach it to others, and it's called starring your paper. The STAR is an acronym for S, substituting a weaker word with a stronger one. The T would be to take out anything that makes our writing sound wordy. And this is very common, and especially the first time through, you're just trying to get all your ideas down. It's not supposed to be perfect. So when we go back and we read it, we need to know it's not perfect and I want to make it better. So we're looking at for wordy sentences. Then we can add in more detail or more descriptive language if we feel like it's just missing a little something. We can always rearrange our material too if we decide that it might be better that it would be in a different order. So, like I said, STAR is an acronym. Kids are pretty familiar with acronyms. Here are some that are pretty popular. It's a fun lesson to do with your child, is to have an acronym lesson and come up with all the different acronyms that everybody is able to come up with in your family. It's kind of a fun way to open the lesson. So STAR is one thing I want all students to remember. So of course I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let's say that this was my paragraph that I was writing on my opinion that cursive should be taught to students. Okay, so I've written my rough draft and now I'm going to revise it. I'm going to star my paper. This is what it may look like. Now, super important. I ask students to star every paragraph, one paragraph at a time, not a whole paper at a time, one paragraph at a time. I also make sure that they understand maybe you don't have an S for this paragraph, or there is no T for this paragraph. You're not going to add in on this paragraph, or you may not rearrange, or you may substitute 3 words and have one takeout, 2 adds, and no rearranges. This acronym is just to open our mind to be looking for ways to increase our vocabulary, take out things that are wordy, add in more details, and rearrange. It does not mean that I have to do one of each for every paragraph. However, for some students, that's a smart way to start. You just say, hey, all we're going to do today is we're going to try and find one S, one T, one A, and one R. The problem with it is sometimes you'll be like, but there isn't anything to rearrange. So I just want to make sure you know, as you're practicing this technique, it doesn't have to be one of each. You can always start by trying it that way, but just understand that sometimes there's multiples of one and none of another. Okay, so this is what I would do with my kids, is I would sit with them and say, all right, so instead of using the word discovering, I actually like the word mastering, right? It's more important that we master cursive writing than just discover, hey, there's a thing called cursive writing. So I thought that's a much better word. So I substituted mastering for discovering. Now, down here, I also said it can be fun. But if I'm wanting to sound a little more academic, even if I choose to stick with the word fun, which is fine, maybe I could add in a little more detail because it's more than it's just fun. It's a challenge. And a lot of children like challenges. So I upped it by adding in another word that gives it a little more detail about what I mean by fun. All right, down here, I decided I don't need to say just for fun. For one, I've got the word fun already, and we don't want to use the same word multiple times. I could just take that out. It still makes perfect sense to say there are camps where kids can stay for a week and do many different hands-on cursive projects. Now, looking at this right now, I would also catch this kids word. A lot of times when students are writing about people their own age, they want to call them kids because that is our slang word. But I would like to remind you that if you want to sound more academic, and especially if you don't want to sound repetitive, we want to change words to children, young adults, students. There are other words we can use. So we need to know synonyms for children. And I recommend you use a thesaurus and find a list of words. Okay, going on. So that was another S, by the way, right? So I've done everything except for rearrange at this point. So down here I have children who go to these camps learn cursive letters and improve reading in cursive. So I thought it was a little wordy, so I went ahead and took out 4 words, added the ing in cursive to just make that sound just a little more precise. I also added in a word. It's more important than it's just part of American history. Our gives ownership. I liked how it sounded, so I added it in. The biggest thing I can tell you is that so many times students are coming from this point of mind where they're like, you already wrote it once. Like, I don't get why you need me to do this. And that's a mindset. And the one thing that I tell children all the time is that even the most qualified authors edit their own work. They revise their own work. In fact, they have people they pay to help them with the revision and editing process. So it is important to realize we're never going to be a perfect writer. Even people who have been published are not perfect writers. But what we're trying to do in the process is improve what we're doing. We can't improve if we're not willing to go back and look again and consider what would make our writing even better. We're always shooting to make it to that next level, right? We want to be the better version of who we are today by looking at things and making ourselves the better version of ourselves tomorrow. So keep that in mind as you go through these. Same thing, I did another add in here. I added cursive letters to be more precise, and I substituted makes it easier. I think improves sounds better. Okay, so these are the things that I want you to keep in mind as your child practices starring their paragraph. This is something that students need to learn to do independently. It's not enough when you're asked to do a writing assignment or on a writing test to just write it once and think you're done. You're going to want to read it a minimum of 3 to 5 times after your rough draft, each time making it better. This is the first thing to do. Star it. We're going to talk about 4-color edit in the next video, but do not head to that one until you've actually starred your writing. I know you're going to do a great job, and I am excited to see how it all turns out. So until next time, I will look forward to seeing you then and seeing you soon. Bye, everybody.